everybody. Dr. Z here. Welcome to this week's episode of Picking and Putting. I'm here in the sort of looking foggy Boston studio here in Charlotte, and Liberty Bill over there in the South Charlotte attic. How you doing, Billy?
I'm doing great. I wish I was in Boston, though. Wonderful city.
Yeah, and man, you talk about some history going on now this week and historically and all things. I got a couple shout outs, and one of them's obvious, and we'll talk about that in more detail. I have Bill Russell, who obviously passed away this week, but he was when I was a kid, he was the NBA. I mean, there were a lot of great players, but he and Red Auerbach were it. And excuse me, we'll go into his history. And the other one was Tony Finau. I mean, his back-to-back golf. I mean, this guy was on fire. He's not playing this week. He should. I just keep on playing until I ran out of gas.
Yeah, he was due. So many top tens. He's been due. It's finally coming home.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Although I saw a thing online that said, believe it or not, okay, so he's finally on. You know how much career earnings he's got? I don't know how old he is. He's 30-something.
$21 million.
At 30.
Okay. I was under.
Yeah. So he's doing okay, whether he's won twice in a row or not. Okay, I got a couple trivia questions here. Do you have any shout outs?
Oh, Bill Russell.
Okay.
That's the
like
one.
I said, we'll go into him in more detail. Okay. 2 trivia questions. You can't answer them right away because they're for you, but they're thrown out there. Number 1, who was the last Boston Red Sox player to win Rookie of the Year? That's number 1. Okay. Number 2, which Red Sox player holds the record for the most hits in a season and allegedly drinking 72 beers during one cross-country flight?
Oh yeah, that I know that one.
That's number 2. That's a lot of beers. I've done a number, but I've never gotten quite that high. Okay, so we started talking about this, and Boston is in the news so much now with the Hall of Fame, both for baseball and football, and Bill Russell. And Bill had the idea, and maybe you want to go into it about the song "Dream On" and its origins. You want me to go in a little detail? I've got some background on it, but
yeah, hit me with some background. I'll add some context along the way.
I'll give you the cool part is it's Boston. It was recorded in Boston. Steven Tyler's from Boston. It was recorded in 1972 in a studio called Intermedia in Boston. Steven Tyler wrote it, and the coolest story, I didn't know this, when he was a little boy, his dad was a concert pianist, Juilliard trained, I believe, and he used to lay underneath his piano and listen to his dad play music. And then as he grew older, by the time he was 14, he had this melody in his mind, and he had written this song by the time he was 14 in his head by listening.
Wow.
To it. That's the story he tells. So it's very cool. And the lyrics I really thought were really good. This one line, it says, every time I look in the mirror, all these lines on my face getting cleaner. The past is gone. Oh, it went by like dusk to dawn. And so he's talking about how fast time flies, and that was written by Steven Tyler.
And he was that young and had that perspective, right?
Yeah,
that's impressive. That's an artist right there.
Yeah, he had all this. He'd written the lyrics and everything 4 years before Aerosmith ever existed. So Aerosmith, he must have been young because it says 4 years, and then he was 21 or something. The song was ranked, pretty high, like they all are. And that was the thing I wanted to tell you. So he wrote this on an upright Steinway piano 4 years before Aerosmith existed. And then over the years, historically, it's kind of like Elton John. He's played it at historical Boston venues honoring different people's deaths, whatever, the passage of time. So it's excuse me, folks. He Yeah, it's a very cool story.
Isn't it the only song in which Steven Tyler used his natural singing voice too? I read that, where it's a distinctly different sound. It's a higher pitch that he has at that age.
Yeah.
And then he clearly changes it as music kind of changed in the later 70s into the 80s to be more rock and less of that high octave. And that is just, how do you do that? I can't even sing in tune, nonetheless start out using my natural voice and then shift into this kind of Aerosmith Steven
Well,
Tyler voice.
now some people maintain that, but a lot of folks, I I maintained I was in high school through the age of 18. Of course, I grew a lot after that, but I had a very high pitched voice, and they called it a tenor or a second tenor or something. Um, and then my voice changed, and be kind of like Frankie Valli, once he,
Yeah.
once he got to be older, you can't sing the things.
Can't hit those notes anymore.
Yeah, no falsettos going. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And Dream On is a classic for Boston and Steven Tyler. So there's just one more tie-in to Boston, and we're excited about. Well, we had the idea that we would talk about the Hall of Fame, and we started thinking, the Hall of Fame football game is this weekend in Canton. And did you look up? Do you know who's playing?
Oh, I'll look that up real. I want to say the Jaguars were one of the most exciting teams to watch.
Well, it's fun to watch a quarterback develop now with a new coach, and especially playing in Ohio.
The Jaguars and the Raiders.
Okay. Well, it might be fun if you get to see Devontae Adams playing there with Carr. Who knows? And that kid from San Francisco, he got his money. So we were going through the Baseball Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame. So let's start out with the Baseball Hall of Fame, because that's, Big Papi. You got David Ortiz. Did you go through all these names? Because it's for me, they're all before your time, but not.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of them are before my time. For me, Big Papi's the one.
Well, for example, Gil Hodges was the Brooklyn Dodgers, so that's before my time too. But he should have been in a long time ago. And then you got some twins, 3 twins: Jim Cott, Minnie Minoso, Tony Oliva, and then.
And Minnie Minoso, I know that was a big deal. The White Sox actually really spearheaded the awareness around him, and I believe they factored in some of his stats prior to being in Major League Baseball when he was professional. And I know that was a big push by a lot of people, including the sabermetric analytics crowd was really supportive of Minnie Minoso. So obviously I never saw him play, but seems like he had a great case. So great to see him inducted.
Well, that was a point somebody made today. It probably was on PTI, but they were talking about Bill Russell and said, don't ever use sabermetrics and all that crap and say whether he's the greatest or he's the greatest. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is if you take all things together, he's the greatest winning athlete, team athlete of all time. He won the gold medal. He won 2 national championships at San Francisco. He won 11 NBA titles. And statistically, that wasn't what he was. But here was the statistic on him that was really cool. He was in 21 game 7s. He didn't lose one.
Yep. Winner take all games. That includes NCAA, Olympic medals, best of 5s, best of 7s.
He was
21-0.
He was 11-0 in championships. Michael was 6-0. So Michael was great, and yeah, that's why it's hard to compare.
You can't compare. Literally, there was no shot clock. There was no 3-point line. There was less teams in the league. It's just a silly barbershop conversation.
Yeah. The other part is, having grown up with it, is he was the consummate team player. And then, if you want to put it in the big perspective, he was Jackie Robinson to basketball.
If you set aside his basketball.
He was Muhammad Ali. He was all that stuff. And at his career after basketball, as an administrator, a coach, a public figure, he was just that cool.
And he was omnipresent. He was at every NBA All-Star game. You know, the NBA Finals MVP trophy is rightfully named after him. He was there every year to pay it forward with those guys and hand them the trophy. And to your point about civil rights, what he was dealing with back then, for him to stick his neck out there, you want to talk about comparing eras? What the hell has Michael Jordan done for civil rights with all of his money and influence? You know, for Bill Russell, he would go out of town. The Celtics would have games and his house would get vandalized. People would defecate in his house. That guy put up with so much stuff. He kept going. And you put his basketball career to the side. He is an American historical figure. He is a civil rights icon. Bill Russell is the man. Rest in peace, good sir.
Do you know who his backup center was on the Celtics bench?
Bill Walton.
Big John Thompson.
I don't even know who that is.
You don't know who John Thompson is?
Oh, I thought you said Don. John Thompson, Georgetown Hoyas?
Yes.
Oh, whoa. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, he was 6'10", like 300 pounds, and he was his backup. Yeah, everybody always pictures him with a towel over his shoulder hugging Dean Smith in the '83 championship or whenever it was.
That's crazy. I didn't even know he played in the league. Nonetheless, he was Bill Russell's backup.
And the story they told today was that they said Boston was a extremely, you know, it was Irish, white, and
racist
to say the least. I guess. Sorry, people, but that's what they said. But John Thompson said he was scared to go out, and he was 6'10", like I said, 300 pounds, to go out on the street by himself. But he said if he was with Bill Russell, he was fearless.
And if you go back, Bill Russell, you look at history, he was on Vietnam. He wasn't cool with that. That wasn't a good idea. You just go back. He's pretty much on the right side of history.
Yeah, he was an interesting man too. And he had a humor side kind of.
Yeah, he did.
Kind of like Barkley. I mean, he could get in your face and, you know, tongue in cheek.
I heard a quote from him one time talking about Michael Jordan being the greatest, and he was like, "Yeah, Michael Jordan's the greatest in his era." But he's like, that little guy, he was referencing John Paxson that hit the game-winning 3 in the '93 finals. He's like, he never would have played in my era. And that's true. You know, no one talks about, you couldn't have a scrawny guy just sitting in the 3-point line getting ready.
Well, I mean, the best all-around player that played with him that I saw, and I grew up with watching him, and he was my hero, was John Havlicek. He was, good golly, Hondo was something. Well, they had 2 other guys that important, because one is Bud Fowler. He was the first black professional baseball player, and he was inducted. And then Buck O'Neil, who was, you've seen pictures of him. He's he was always the face of the Negro Leagues.
Yep.
Kind of like, you know, it's kind of like Satchel Paige.
Yep.
Satchel Paige was an amazing, you know, Satchel Paige was to baseball what Tom Brady is to football right now. Nobody knew how old he was, and he was throwing the base.
He was still discussed. Yeah, they named the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame after Buck O'Neil in Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool.
And Big Papi, the thing I want to say about him, I'll start with the positive. So for me, like, it wasn't even being a child going to games at Wrigley Field. It's really the summers of 2003 and the fall of 2004 when I fell in love with baseball. The Cubs, 2003, Bartman, you know, that happened.
Yeah.
2004, though, the Red Sox, as someone who was a recovering Cubs fan, they were down 3-0 to the Yankees, who had eliminated them the prior year. They, bunch of idiots, Ramirez and Big Papi, led them back. Dave Roberts stole the base in game 4 to lead them all the way back. They go on to win the World Series. That gave me, as a Cubs fan, a lot of hope and really enjoyed watching that team. But on the negative, Big Papi somehow skirts all this steroid stuff. You know, he was in the same reports that A-Rod and Manny and all those other guys were in. No, he never technically tested positive. But I just, again, getting back to the point, we've discussed ad nauseum, it's a dead horse. But to say that he was pure and put him in the Hall of Fame, I think you're taking a leap.
But that's, I'm tired of they need some new voters, because I'm tired of the Baseball Hall of Fame, in that Those guys should all be in. You want to label them with a different something, they should be in.
Yeah, they tested positive. It's that simple. They tested positive. You can put that on the plaque.
And don't get me wrong, if it's for on-field production, then the all-time hits leader in baseball should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, put his perverted ass in.
I mean, I don't care whether he bet on God after he became a manager. That is irrelevant to me. I don't, and Shoeless Joe should be in. You know, whatever.
Yeah, we got to go to the Shoeless Joe Jackson Museum in Greenville, South Carolina.
But do they have one?
They do. We seriously do need to make an excuse to go down there.
Well, okay. Well, Greenville, Spartanburg, for all you folks up north, it's a beautiful place. It's along the edge of the Appalachian Mountains in South Carolina, and it's just a gorgeous area. It's and if you want to go buy a BMW, they make them there. So, you know, it's a cool place to go. Well, you want to get
off the line.
You want to get into what the football Hall of Fame's this weekend. Okay.
Yes.
So I was looking through these guys, and there's nobody, believe it or not, there's nobody that just jumps out at me and sets my
Tony Baselli?
Well, Tony, I mean, no, I don't mean that they shouldn't be in. I don't mean it that way. I just mean, you know, it's not like you know, Red Grange is getting in or something.
Yeah, there's not a transformative guy in this particular class.
And of course, you know, Tony Baselli is probably, of all of them, he's great. But, and in our region, of course, Sam Mills became legendary because he finished his career with the Panthers. He was most of his career was with the Saints, but he finished his career here, and then he became a coach, and he fought cancer, and the phrase "keep pounding," which still to this day is carried by the Panthers in their pregame. He was a wonderful man that died too young.
And I even knew of him as a Bears fan growing up in Chicago. He was a national figure, and that story was a national story. And it's what a great way to honor him before every game, having a special guest come in and pound the drum like Sam did. That's a really cool tradition.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool too. I did go through there. The senior ones are kind of cool. Cliff Branch was a great Raider. The Raiders are just fun. Back from when the Raiders were Raiders. I mean,
the
Raiders, you know. And you think of Madden, and you know, geez, they're just awesome. But then the two they had Art McNally, who he began his refereeing career in 1968, and he was in some function with the league up until the present day almost.
Wow.
He became the director of referees, and then he, you know, kind of went back and policed or whatever. He was an amazing guy. And of course, the greatest show on turf, man. I mean, St. Louis. I never saw a greater offense for those couple of years than when Vermeil was at St. Louis, and they brought the grocery store guy back from quarterback.
Kurt Warner, and apparently the movie is not terrible. My friends tell me that the Netflix Kurt Warner from Hy-Vee bagger boy to Super Bowl MVP quarterback, apparently the movie's not terrible. So I'll check it out.
I mean, his career was crazy.
Yeah, he was playing in the arena football in Iowa. Went to Northern Iowa, and yep, you can find quarterbacks out there.
He was backing up. Didn't he back up? Who was he backing up?
Trent Green. Trent Green was
Trent Green got hurt.
Yep. Yeah. That opened the whole thing.
Well, the other ones I saw on here were Richard Seymour and Bryant Young, who was a D tackle, defensive end at 49ers. But Richard Seymour, he was a good one too.
Yeah, those two make me feel old because I feel like I watched their entire careers.
Yeah, I know. That's like the yeah. Well, some of this, it's amazing when you see some of these guys.
What about Leroy Butler?
Yeah, Leroy Butler.
That's my guy. Do you know what he's most famous for?
No.
Let me take you back to December 26th, 1993. I pulled up the YouTube right before we recorded this pod. It was one of those where it was like a VHS So it kept skipping, like the colors were changing, so it was hard to discern what was going on. But December 26, 1993, Packers are playing the Raiders. Second down, the Raiders are at their own 35-yard line. Quarterback drops back to pass. Running back is catching a swing pass in the backfield. All of a sudden, this green jersey comes flying out of nowhere onto the screen and pops the football out of the running back's hands into the arms of the Minister of Defense, Reggie White. Reggie runs for about 10 yards. He's not going anywhere. He's about to get tackled by an offensive tackle. He's falling out of bounds. He pitches it back to Leroy Butler, who forced the damn fumble by coming out of nowhere, who proceeds to sprint 25 yards into the end zone and leap into the arms of the fans in the South bleachers, thereby starting the tradition of the Lambeau Leap. The Packers went on to win that game 28-0. That would be the first of 6 consecutive playoff berths. It really started their dynasty. And then you might remember Robert Brooks, the receiver. That was the guy that really took it a step further, and he started like jumping into the crowd like they do now. But Leroy Butler was the first guy to do the Lambeau Leap.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because that reminded me when you said that goes back to the Tatum hit and the Immaculate Reception,
Yeah.
Same. You can watch that video over and over again. And what's the other one they always show on NFL films that showed Willie Brown, and they got the camera on him. He's running. He's intercepted the ball. I think Anyway,
we should almost do a future episode on NFL films. That stuff was formative. There was nobody else in sports doing those docuseries way back in the 60s, 70s with the big band music and really making it feel theatrical, and having like Hank Stram as the Chiefs head coach back in the day, wired up for sound, yelling, blue 42, blue, all that good stuff.
Keep matriculating down the field, boys.
Keep matriculating down the field.
Yeah, that was the the father and then the son did it. Golly, I'm blanking on name. Begins with an S. NFL films. Anyways.
Oh, Steve Sable. Yeah,
Sable.
R.I.P. Steve Sable. Yeah. R.I.P.
Yeah.
Legend.
Well, Dad started it. Steve Sable was his son.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. You're a generation late, I think. Anyways, Well, anything else you want to say about the Hall of Fame?
No, I think we've covered it.
Okay. Well, a couple things. I just want to I'll give you that. 2 things. Going to promote future podcasts, folks. Bill and I are going to go into depth. It's going to be an in-depth look on picking and putting at concussion protocol, CTE, and new advances in that. That'll be coming early this fall. We want you to stay tuned for that because we're going to have a lot of information there.
Yeah, that's a really important and a really timely topic, and we'll be kind of speaking to some future advancements there. So that should be quite exciting.
So we're excited about that. Okay, now back to trivia. Who was the last Boston Red Sox player to win Rookie of the Year? And you couldn't have cheated by looking it up on your Google.
Noma.
No, Dustin Pedroia.
I should have got that.
2007. Okay, so I know you know the second one. Which Red Sox player holds the record for the most hits in a season and allegedly drinking 72 beers during one cross-country flight?
Wade Boggs, and I think I would have got that even with the first clue, but the second clue, definitely.
Well, we'll push it. We'll give you 2 for trivia bonus. How many hits did he have?
157.
255.
Oh, it wasn't even close.
And you know the year?
1981.
Pretty good. 85. So that was pretty good. Well,
that's the best ballpark in America, and that's coming from a Cubs fan. If you haven't been there, you got to get to Fenway. It's the best.
Yeah, I'm supposed to take the trip down the St. Lawrence River, and one of the options when you got to Boston was to spend the half a day where you just walk around there, and then after they've toured you around the ballpark, inside and out, and the green wall and everything, you go pub hopping. But I didn't win on that one. So anyways, okay, I got a quote for all you folks to as we wrap up the show here. I want you to know this is a quote from the great Bill Russell, the great Celtic that we've talked about earlier in the show. And he said, "The most important measure of how good a game I played was how much better I made my teammates play." And he personified team. That's what he was. He was team after basketball. He was team in basketball. He was team. So that quote is a classic, and you kids can take that one to the bank.
And that's how you go 21-0 and winner take all games.
Yep, you make your teammates better. Now, he had some pretty damn good teammates. John Havlicek, Bob Cousy. There are a few good ones in there, but you know.
But we see today managing all talent and egos, and those guys had egos back then.
Yeah, they did.
You know, it takes the right alpha leader, and clearly that's what Bill Russell was.
Well, I mean, all you got to do to see how that works, you can go through every era of pro sports, but the teams that figure it out, the New England Patriots, the San Antonio Spurs, the Golden State Warriors,
the Packers with Leroy Butler.
Yeah, the Packers are another story altogether. But those teams figured out how to be teams. And you know, right now, Golden State's they figured it out. They can make a little run and last. They could get a few more under their belt before they're finished.
Yeah, you know, there's some parallels between Steph Curry's leadership and Bill Russell's.
Yeah, Steph was right. You know, he came from a little easier background than Bill did, though. Bill, yes. Do you know? Jeez. Okay, here's another trivia question for you. You didn't know. Where was Bill Russell born? What state? What city?
I don't even know. I'm gonna guess Kansas.
No, he's a Southern boy.
Okay.
He was born in Monroe, Louisiana.
Wow.
And then for whatever reason, his parents moved to San Francisco, Oakland. And then they lived in the, in the tenements and stuff in San Francisco. But that's why he ended up playing for USF. And that was just late, they were in that era when you had late 60s or early 60s, late 50s. You had Cincinnati, you had Ohio State, and you had USF, and you had Cal. Those were the great basketball teams of the late mid 50s to early 60s. That was when I was a kid, and they were fun to watch. Okay, well, everybody, you got anybody else you want to yell at, Billy, or shout out or anything?
I got a Bill Russell quote in parting here. "Success is a result of consistent practice of winning skills and actions. There is nothing miraculous about the process. There is no luck involved."
Yep.
I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, it's all about practice. The more you practice, the better your luck is.
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, one more thing about that. I saw a thing from my medical background about these neurosurgeons from London that helped separate these two kids, 4-year-old boys that were joined at the head, their brains and everything, down in Rio. And the practice they did with virtual reality, they practiced for months.
Wow.
And every time they'd find where they'd make their mistakes in that before they ever did this operation. And then everybody was onto the virtual reality in London and Rio when they did the actual procedures, which lasted 30 hours. And it was successful. It was just an amazing thing. But the point there was practice. It works in any business, folks. It works in medicine, law, you name it.
Yep. Anything.
Cooking. Well, we're excited to have everybody here this week. You can tune us in on all platforms. We're on YouTube too, if you want to look at our ugly faces.
And we got football content coming, all kinds of football.
Yeah, you know, not far from, we're coming to your city, folks. City. Getting ready. Picking and putting. We'll see you next time. Glad you were here, Billy. Enjoyed it, man.
Rate, review, subscribe, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.